Each one of those layers will develop into different things. But what we have in between these two layers of mesoderm is an empty cavity where things like your internal organs can develop. I mean, yes, they are attached to the walls of your rib cage and things like that, but they're attached loosely. They can move. In an acoelomate, there are no real true internal organs to develop, and they are all solid, squished together, which in you, if you get bumped around, do you get internal bleeding very easily? No, right? You guys fall all the time. You run into things. Okay, I run into things. And so it's easy for our body to absorb some of those changes because our organs aren't necessarily stuck to our walls. Okay? Pseudocoelomates have that sort of body cavity, okay, which means that they can develop some of those organ systems, but it isn't quite the same, okay? There isn't quite as much flexibility there. Okay, so when we're talking about mollusks, when we talk about annelids, we're going to be talking about true coelomates. And that's where we have that hollow body cavity. It's surrounded by the mesoderm, both on the internal surface and the external surface. So that allows us to separate the body wall muscles and the internal muscles. So things like your heart are separated from your biceps, okay? You have muscles on the outside of your rib cage, and also you have specific muscles on the inside that are designed for certain purposes. The circulatory system is not stopped by other organs. It is its own system in these animals. Then we get into another set of characteristics. Trochophores is just the name, the term for the larval stage of development in these animals. Mostly not something you're going to really be needing to know. Maybe a term on the test, but not something we're going to spend a whole lot of time on. That larval stage in these animals can be free-swimming. Most of them will have cilia or a flagella, but most of them will have cilia. And then they just ride on the ocean currents because most of your mollusks are going to live in marine waters. Okay, the body plan of a mollusk. So the other thing you have, or the next thing you have on your cool little sheet, is a diagram of the body of a mollusk that looks something like that, right? Yours isn't in color, I'm sorry. I know. So that while we talk about some of these things, I can put them on the board and you can see them. Okay, so mollusks have a kind of unique body system, body design. The first thing that we talk about is called the head foot, and it is what it sounds like. It is the head and the foot, except that they're all one piece in the mollusk. So everything basically from here to here, this is the head foot. Contains the head, which includes the mouth and sensory organs, and the foot, used for movement. Okay, so if I put that on a test, if I say, what is the head foot, or what does it include, everyone should be able to tell me it includes the head and the foot.
That's easy.
Good job. Everybody gets an A. Okay. Now, not every mollusk that you see is going to have a true head foot, but most of the ones that we talk about are going to. Okay? Everything from that point upward, I'm not quite tall enough. Ugh. This is the visceral mass. Okay? So there's two major regions, the head foot region and the visceral mass. And the easiest way to remember what the visceral mass contains is it's basically everything that the head foot does not. Okay? Circulatory, digestive, excretory, reproductive organs. Those things that need to be a little more protected, generally. The mantle, which is usually used something you may think about with the earth, is part of the visceral mass, but it's the shell. Okay? Usually it's the shell. Not every mollusk is going to have a shell, but generally it's the shell. It's just the outer covering that goes around the visceral mass. So we do have some mollusks that do not have shells. In those cases, they will have just a thick skin, basically. The great thing about the mantle, what do you think is great about the mantle for these animals? Not so much keeping them warm. It does what, Michaela? Protects them, okay, from predators and falling debris and whatever, okay? Now, the problem with the mantle is that, we're going to get to this, but these organisms don't have a true respiratory system. They don't have lungs. So they have to exchange gases through their skin, which means that what happens in that area where there's the mantle? Can you breathe through a wall?
Yep.
No. Okay.
No.
Neither can these guys. So that restricts the amount of oxygen that they can get to their bodies because they can't exchange gases in those regions. Okay. Underneath the mantle is the mantle cavity. It's this kind of really gray, light gray, middle gray color. Mantle cavity. And it basically acts as a cushion between the mantle and the rest of the body. Just like you guys would rather carry around a soft backpack than a filing cabinet. Okay, there needs to be something in between that hard mantle and the soft body cavity. Okay. But again, that mantle cavity, it's great because, yes, it does allow some oxygen to be exchanged, but basically the only place that we can get oxygen in and out is going to be right here and right here. Okay? So again, it doesn't do a whole lot of good as far as respiration is concerned, but it does offer some protection and movement capabilities.